In the early 13th century, the Livonian Crusade unfolded along the shores of the Baltic Sea, where Christian knights from Germany and Denmark sought to conquer and convert the pagan peoples of present-day Latvia and Estonia. Driven by both religious zeal and the promise of new lands, the Crusaders clashed with local tribes in fierce battles. Over decades, castles rose and resistance faltered as ancient cultures were forever changed, shaping the political and spiritual landscape of Northern Europe. For centuries, the very word crusade has conjured images of sun-baked deserts, valiant knights, and the distant Holy Land. But what if I told you that one of the most brutal, transformative, and often forgotten crusades unfolded not in the scorching sands, but in the icy forests and frozen bogs of the far north? Welcome to Livonia, a wild, untamed land in the medieval imagination, stretching across what is now modern-day Latvia and Estonia. There was a realm of ancient pagan traditions where spirits dwelled in sacred groves and the rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons, not the cross. Its people, the Livs, the Latgalians, the Estonians, lived largely untouched by the great Christian empires to the west. But as the 12th century drew to a close, the winds of change were blowing relentlessly from the south and west. Fueled by religious zeal, territorial ambition, and the promise of new lands, a different kind of conquest was about to begin. This wasn't about restoring lost holy sites. It was about conversion by the sword, about bringing the heathen into the fold, whether they wished it or not. This is the story of the Livonian Crusade, a brutal, decades-long conflict that would irrevocably reshape the Baltic landscape, erase ancient cultures, and forge a new Christian order. It's a tale of faith and fanaticism, of resistance and relentless expansion. Join us as we journey into the frozen frontier. The story of the Livonian Crusade begins not with a war cry, but with a trading post. German merchants had long ventured up the Daugava River, seeking furs and timber. With them came missionaries, hoping to spread Christianity peacefully. The earliest, a Cistercian monk named Meinhard, established a church at Ixchel around 1184. Meinhard's efforts, however, met with limited success. The Livs, deeply rooted in their animistic beliefs, saw little reason to abandon their gods. They tolerated the Christians, sometimes even accepting baptism, but often washing it off in the river later. It became clear to the ambitious churchmen that persuasion alone would not suffice. The call for armed intervention soon followed. The papacy, eager to expand Christendom and find new outlets for crusading fervor, granted the venture the status of a holy war. This wasn't just about souls, it was about power, land, and resources. In 1198, Meinhard's successor, Bishop Berthold, arrived with a small crusader contingent. When the Livs rose up, Berthold was killed in battle. This martyrdom only intensified the call for a full-scale crusade. The turning point came with Bishop Albert Buxhoeveden of Bremen. A shrewd strategist and charismatic leader, Albert arrived in 1200 with a large fleet and an army of crusaders. His goal was not just conversion, but conquest and the establishment of a permanent Christian stronghold. In 1201, he founded Riga, a strategic port city that would become the heart of the Livonian church state. To secure his gains and ensure continuous military support, Bishop Albert founded a new monastic military order in 1202, the Livonian Brothers of the Sword, or the Sword Brothers. Sworn to the Pope, these warrior monks would become the brutal cutting edge of the Crusade, carving out their own domains in the name of God. They were the shock troops of this frozen frontier. With Riga as their base, the Crusaders began their systematic expansion. The first targets were the indigenous Livs, concentrated along the Daugava and Gauja rivers. Their wooden forts, though stout, were no match for the Crusaders' siege technology and disciplined forces. Forced baptisms became common, followed by the construction of stone castles to secure newly acquired territories. These fortifications served as administrative centers, military garrisons, and symbols of the new order. As the Livs succumbed, the Crusaders pushed further north and east, encountering the Latgalians and then the more numerous and well-organized Estonians. The Estonians, unlike the fragmented Livs, had a stronger tradition of tribal alliances and fierce resistance. The campaign against the Estonians was long and bloody. One notable early conquest was the hill fort of Otepää in 1208, a strategic stronghold whose fall signaled the precariousness of Estonian independence. The Estonians were not passive victims. They mounted numerous revolts, sometimes uniting different tribes against the invaders. They understood the existential threat the Crusaders posed to their way of life. The situation grew even more complex when another powerful Christian force entered the fray, the Danes. In 1219, King Valdemar II of Denmark launched his own crusade, conquering northern Estonia and establishing the city of Reval, modern-day Tallinn. This introduced a new dynamic, Christian against Christian, as the Danes and the Sword Brothers now vied for control over the same territories. The fighting was relentless. Villages were burned, crops destroyed, and populations decimated. The Crusaders often employed a strategy of terror, aiming to break the will of the pagan defenders. Yet Estonian resistance continued, often fueled by desperate hope and the desire to protect their ancient freedoms. Despite their initial successes, the Livonian Sword Brothers were becoming increasingly arrogant and militarily overstretched. Their harsh rule and constant demand for tribute alienated both the indigenous populations and even some of the local bishops. Their ambition often clashed with the authority of the church. This overconfidence would lead to their undoing. In 1236, the Sword Brothers launched a major campaign against the Semigallians, a fierce Baltic tribe, and their Lithuanian allies. This proved to be a catastrophic miscalculation. At the Battle of Sol, the Sword Brothers were annihilated. Their Grandmaster and virtually all their leading knights were killed. It was a crushing defeat that sent shockwaves across Christendom. The papacy, recognizing the dire situation and needing a stronger hand in Livonia, dissolved the shattered Sword Brothers. Their surviving members were absorbed into the most powerful military order in Europe, the Teutonic Knights. Already firmly established in Prussia, the Teutonic Order now extended its vast network into Livonia, forming the semi-autonomous Livonian Order. The arrival of the Teutonic Knights brought a new level of organization, military discipline, and architectural prowess. They began constructing massive stone castles, imposing fortresses that still dominate the landscape today. These castles were not just military strongpoints, they were administrative centers, symbols of the new German-dominated order and crucial nodes in the burgeoning trade network. With their renewed strength, the Livonian order continued the Crusade. They finally subdued the Curonians and Semigallians, completing the conquest of what would become the core territories of medieval Livonia. The conquered territory of Livonia was not a unified state, but a collection of ecclesiastical lordships and the vast domains of the Livonian order. This was the Terra Mariana, the land of Mary, theoretically under the suzerainty of the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, but practically governed by the Archbishop of Riga, various bishops, and most powerfully, the Livonian order. Internal rivalries and power struggles between these entities would plague Livonia for centuries. By the mid-13th century, the Crusades in Livonia had largely concluded. The pagan societies were subdued, their traditional ways of life shattered. A new social and political order had been imposed. German became the language of power, trade, and the church. The new Christianized Livonia became an integral part of the Hanseatic League, a powerful confederation of merchant guilds that dominated trade in the Baltic and North Seas. Cities like Riga, Dorpat, and Reval flourished as vital trading hubs, connecting the rich resources of the East with the markets of Western Europe. For the indigenous populations, the Livs, Estonians, Latgalians, Curonians, Semigallians, the Crusade meant a fundamental shift in their social status. Many were reduced to serfdom, tied to the land and subject to German-speaking landlords and administrators. Their ancient customs and beliefs were suppressed, gradually replaced by Christianity. Yet, the legacy was not entirely one-sided. The Crusaders introduced new agricultural techniques, new technologies, and of course, Latin script and a written culture. The impressive stone architecture they left behind still stands as a testament to their ambition and power. Livonia remained a volatile frontier. It was constantly contested by powerful neighbors, the burgeoning Grand Duchy of Lithuania to the south, the Russian principalities of Novgorod and Pskov to the east, and later the expanding kingdoms of Sweden and Poland. The internal struggles between the Livonian order and the various bishops also ensured a continuous state of political flux. The Livonian Crusade, often overshadowed by its counterparts in the Levant, was a unique and brutal chapter in European history. It was a crusade driven by a potent mix of religious zeal, economic opportunity, and territorial expansion. Unlike the Holy Land Crusades, where the goal was to reclaim lost Christian territories, Livonia was about establishing a wholly new Christian dominion on formerly pagan lands. The indigenous people, initially resistant, eventually saw their cultures absorbed and transformed. Yet their languages endured, a testament to the resilience of their identity even under centuries of foreign rule. The events of the Livonian Crusade fundamentally shaped the ethno-linguistic and political landscape of modern-day Latvia and Estonia. The German presence, the division of land, the development of towns, all have roots in this period of conquest and consolidation. The frozen frontier was conquered, but not without immense cost. The Livonian Crusade stands as a powerful reminder of how faith, ambition, and the sword reshaped a continent, leaving an indelible mark on the land and its people, a history that continues to echo in the modern Baltic states. A story of domination, resistance, and the complex tapestry of human history.